Hey there, and welcome to Effin' Fridays with Francine, the podcast where we blend spirituality, entrepreneurship, and a whole lot of fun. I'm Francine Tirrell, owner of Forever Changed Coaching. I'm a spiritual mindset coach helping women make big ass up levels in their business and their life. I'm your host, and every Friday, we're here to light up your day with lively conversations with amazing humans who are shaking things up and making the world a better place. Get ready for laughter, inspiring stories, and a good dose of positivity as we chat with healers, dreamers, artists, coaches, and visionaries who are bringing their unique magic to the world. If you love mixing a bit of soul with a whole lot of joy, you are in the right spot. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's hang out together. Welcome to Effin' Fridays with Francine, where we are going to have some fun. Hello, and welcome to Effin' Fridays with Francine. I am super excited about today's episode. I have with me my BFF soul sister, Robin Thomas. Robin is a spiritual GPS, happiness coach, healer, and the founder of Phoenix Rising Healings. She's also a lead teacher and coach at the Reese Thomas Institute of Energy Medicine, which is where we met. We'll talk about that a little, I'm sure. She is a self-help personal transformation junkie and enjoys collecting certificates and degrees. I think she has every letter, but what did you say? X or Z?
Yeah, right? I don't have an X. Yep.
Robin is passionate, enthusiastic, playful, and deeply irreverent, habitually giving her guides a run for their money. She believes wholeheartedly in the value of play and fervently enjoys calling forth playmates willing to dive deep into what it means to be fully alive. Welcome. I'm so excited you're here.
I'm so excited to be here. This is really, really cool.
Yeah. Before we get started, I always wait till the end, but I want to remind everyone that I do a card pull. So just set your intention. There are 3 cards in front of me, left, center, and right. So just choose your card and just pay attention to whether or not our conversation and then the card you choose makes, there's a connection. I actually had my husband pull the deck today, and he pulled a card for himself, and he was like, oh, I just asked for this. I was like, beautiful. So these cards are pretty powerful today. So
yeah, they never lie. That's true.
No, they don't. So Robin, I mean, this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to be the interviewer, but I know so much already. But sure. Tell the listeners, tell our audience, about yourself and the journey of how you got to where you are today.
Oh boy. Well, I actually just talked about this on my live the other day. I spent the vast majority of my life thinking there was something just fundamentally wrong with me. I've never fit in. I'm the rainbow sheep in my family, right? Not even a black sheep. I'm just this.
Hey, if you're gonna be a sheep, be a rainbow sheep.
Right? Be a rainbow sheep. I mean, I'm colorful and wild and enthusiastic and passionate, and I was born into a family that was just like, do something with this kid. Like, they just had no idea what to do with me. My mom was grieving. My family was a mess. Like, it was, there was lots of trauma that nobody was talking about. And I just was like in the mix of this, naming it, and they didn't know what to do with me. So I really, truly thought something was wrong with me. And, I call myself a stray. I'm a lesbian in a gay world. So I'm often just like, I just don't quite fit in. And it took me till I was almost 40 to figure out that there really wasn't anything wrong with me. It's actually when I was at Reese Thomas Institute was when I was like, oh, maybe there isn't something wrong with me. And that's really been, so the past 10 years have been this like deep dive into, well, if there's nothing wrong with me and there's nothing to fix, then what if everybody felt this way? What if everybody knew that they're okay just as is, and that the world needs their light? So the past decade has been really exploring my depths, and so that I could hold this beautiful, amazing space for my clients to shine unapologetically, because I say it all the time, but I mean it sincerely. The world needs your light.
So for people who may not understand what that means that are listening, tell them a little bit what that means. Like, what does it mean to shine your light, right?
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, I call my clients fierce happy. I mean, I have some men though, so they're not just women. Fiercely happy, and that is that sort of feeling, that sense of the internal unshakable knowing of who you are at the core of who you are, and being 100% okay with it. That means there's no judgment, there's no self-recrimination, there's no negative self-talk. It's just like, this is, I am who I am, and it is completely okay to be me as is. And and
And
that
it
that
sounds easy, right? Like,
well, no, it's
sure, right? I had a similar conversation with a client about what's wrong with me. I was like, so you've been searching for over 40 years and haven't found anything. Is it possible?
right.
Right.
Yes.
And it sounds easy in practice, right? I
Mm.
mean, it sounds easy, but when you put it into practice, it's not that easy. So, what are the steps that maybe you take your clients through? How do you take them through that journey of really falling in love with themselves?
Well, that's a good question. So, I mean, the first part of it is I teach them how to feel their feelings as is, like without judgment, I'm like, just feel it. And so a lot of times I have them turn the volume up on the feeling. I'll be like, what are you feeling? And they'll be like, X. And I'll be like, great, let's actually feel it. Like, I feel sad. I had my client this morning, I was talking to him, and he was like, I feel like desolate and hopeless and depressed and like disgruntled. I was like, great. I want you to,
Yay.
yeah, I said, great. He looked at me like he wanted to like, right. He wasn't happy, but I was like, just feel that. Just
Yeah.
be with that feeling without trying to fix it, change it, just accept it. And in doing that, because what we feel is what we feel. It's just energy and motion. We feel what we feel. And in doing that, being present with ourselves in that way, it makes it makes it okay to both have the feelings that we're feeling, or the thoughts or the judgments. So we're not trying to hide them, shove them aside, put them away, pretend they don't exist. We're just being present with them, which gives
Yeah.
them permission to go forward or
And,
through.
a lot of the clients I work with are women that live in their head, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, I think I'm happy. I think I'm sad. I think
Right.
and I use the Abraham Hicks, like, wow, there's a lot of those emotions, right? Like, we do
Yes.
the big whatever, right? But when you really look at it, and none of them are right or wrong, they just are just that. But
Exactly.
being okay with being angry, being sad, being whatever it is,
Right.
and really feeling it in your body. And I just came off a beautiful 4-day retreat where it's, that shit gets stuck in your body too, right? If you
Yeah.
don't let it out, right? And allow, ill disease, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is just energy that is stuck and no
Stuck
place
in
to
your
move,
body. Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Energy and motion, emotion. It is
Right.
meant, like, you watch kids, little kids cry their hearts out for like 3 minutes, and then they move on and they're happy as can be. And,
You know what? Yes. And, I don't have children, and I so often see parents, kids crying, stop, you're fine. Right. We
yes.
are, we are
Oh,
conditioned from such a young age that it isn't okay to just stifle them. Right.
right.
You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. Okay. I'm
Or
fine.
we give them something to distract them, or here, don't cry, I'll give you this thing, or I'll give you the whatever, this toy, this
Or
iPad.
this came up at the retreat I was at. I forget, somebody said, or the lovely line that almost all parents said, do you want me to give you something to really
Right?
cry about?
Stop crying,
Right.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Right.
That was our generation.
Right. Absolutely.
What are
Right.
you
So you're
crying
like,
for?
oh, if this is bad, I don't really want to cry. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you shift that programming?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a lot of, so I do so much inner child work, like so much of like, okay, where, once we can acknowledge the feeling and allow it to come into our hearts, and like you get a little bit of distance from it. My almost immediate next question is like, okay, when's the first time you remember feeling this feeling? It is almost 1,000% based on some
That happened.
trauma,
Yeah.
right? And I mean trauma, and big T trauma, like we think of as trauma, and also little t trauma.
Yeah.
That is like, anytime you were told who you are is not okay, which
Right.
is fucking all day long. That's, those micro traumas are even more sometimes insidious than the big ones.
Yeah.
And so we go back in time, and I give them permission to be what they needed when they didn't have it.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of Ho'oponopono, which is forgiveness work. We do a lot of shadow work. We do a lot of, again, just reparenting that inner child and giving it permission to stop carrying the bullshit.
Right. I use EFT in my practice, and I'll even bring that in for inner child work, right? Like tapping on the inner child, because sometimes there isn't even language,
Right.
right? Oftentimes I know when we've done inner child work, even for myself, when I have done inner child work, I'm like, huh, I didn't see that one coming, right? Like it's
Right.
like you said, it isn't always the big T traumas, right? Because
It's
those we can
probably not.
identify.
Exactly.
Right. It's
Exactly.
the, it's the little stuff, like somebody just said a statement to you and it just hits.
It's your third grade teacher
Yeah.
embarrassing you in class one day, right? That's
Right.
not something that's even in your purview.
Right. Your
But
conscious thoughts.
exactly,
It's
that's
all
what
in
I
that
mean.
subconscious stuff.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about 5D consciousness, because I know that's something you talk a lot about. So explain to the listeners what that is, and where
Sure.
you, yeah.
All right. So we live in what's called a 3D world, right? You can feel it, sense it, touch it, taste it, like 3D. It's actual, it's reality. I'm using quotes with that one.
Air quotes for those that aren't watching
Right,
the
exactly.
video.
If you're just getting the audio, it's a
I did that
quote.
yesterday. I air quoted.
But so we live in this world that is a very physical world. It's a very first chakra physical world. Um, there are higher dimensions. There are higher levels of consciousness, being, soul energy. And as a human race, we're moving from this like 3D, really physical, everything you can see, taste, touch, smell world to a much more open, conscious space where there isn't the separation of the physical. So it's a much more amorphous energy, and it's a much more collective flow. Like what happens to one of us happens to all of us. So as we move into higher levels of consciousness, the lowest vibration is this 3D world that we're in. And frankly, it's a pretty low vibrational world at the moment. Like it's like shit, right? It's expressly so we can feel enough that it wakens us up, because we're so desensitized that it has to get pretty freaking uncomfortable in order for us to wake up. But once we wake up, now we're moving into that place of higher levels of consciousness, higher frequencies, higher connections with source, divine, universe, whatever you want to call it. And the higher levels we move up, the more we feel connected, which is why so many people are crying out for community right now, because we're waking up, but we don't have the systems kind of in place yet to help people hold it.
Yeah.
That's the discomfort. That's the friction between the physical world and the
What do you
non-physical.
think somebody needs to let go of, right? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking, oftentimes, and I'm sure you experience this as well, we both talk together and we both are coaches, right? It's so much easier to hold on to that victim, poor me energy than
Sure.
live in that joy, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
even when I have conversations with clients, they're like, yeah, that sounds great and all, but I ain't fucking doing it, right?
Right,
I just
right.
can't get myself. This victim shit feels so much better. And I've done it, right?
Right, right.
But what do you think it is about that lower vibration, that victimy energy, that it keeps us stuck and avoids us from feeling the joy, the happiness, all the other higher vibration things?
Well, I think it's a couple of things actually. I think first of all, fear, which is the first chakra that shuts down the physical world. There's a fear. There is a legitimate fear that if I do this, I will die.
Mm.
Right. And it's our small self, it's our ego self that believes that, but it believes it fully. Right. So it's again making friends with that fear and saying, hey, I get it.
Can I just tell you, the podcast I recorded yesterday is called Making Friends with the Fear. So there's a theme here.
Of course it is. Of course it
There's
is.
a theme here.
Again, because you can't make
So
this
we'll have
shit
to
up.
find another name for yours because that one's already taken.
Okay, all right, it's good. But no, so it really is making friends with that fear, and it does take an act of courage because victim is familiar. It is comfortable. Most of the time, we don't even know that we're in it. It is familiar, so it feels safe, and it's the known. And taking that leap of faith, literally, from the known to the unknown, there's a huge gap in the middle where there's an uncertainty, which is painful.
It's the uncomfortable. Like I always talk about
Absolutely.
being comfortable in the uncomfortable, right?
Oh,
Like,
exactly.
okay,
Exactly.
this feels icky, but if we can
Right.
stay in it
Right.
and realize we are safe in it, then we get to the other side. But if we can't even stay here, then we go backwards.
Exactly.
But we have to just sit with that. I don't feel good. This feels heavy. This feels icky. I want to kick, scream, and whatever.
Right. Exactly.
And then you go, oh, well, that wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But we so often won't even
I
allow
can't.
ourselves to get to that other place
Right.
because it's the unknown, right? Like
Right.
control
Exactly.
freak and recovery here, talking about the fear of the unknown, right? Like half the shit that I would or wouldn't do is because I needed a plan and I needed to know what was going to happen. Now,
Right.
90% of the time, the plan never went the way I expected.
Right.
So my nervous system is like, what's happening?
Exactly. I don't know if you've seen it yet. The movie, the new Inside Out movie.
I was just talking to somebody else about that. No, I
It's
haven't.
it's good. It's not, I mean, it's good. But like there's a scene where anxiety is trying to run things, and she has all these different, like, if I, and she's like doing this like crazy thing, and right, and they're just like, and Joy has to like kind of like pull her out of it, right? She has to like, she says, what would happen? And she's like, but that's not happening right now.
Right.
Right. So it's like bringing yourself into the present moment is so crucial. This is what consciousness is. It's like being present in the now. Right now, I'm safe. Right now, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
My mantra is right here, right now, I'm okay. Right here, right now, I'm safe. I have shared with clients and in other things. A few years ago, I had the doctor wanted me to have the ultrasound on top of the mammogram, right? And if any women out there have ever done that, it's a little unnerving. And my sister had breast cancer about 6 years ago. So I felt really good going into it, right? But I got the mammogram, then they move you to another room where I got the ultrasound, and I was starting to get a little anxious. And then they moved me to a chair outside the room that we were in when my sister got diagnosed.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
now I'm sitting waiting for them to come and give me the results. And I'm planning when I can squeeze radiation into my schedule. I'm sitting there, I'm literally making a plan. And all of a sudden I went, what are you doing? You actually, in this moment, don't have breast cancer.
Right.
Like I might have, and I didn't, right? For all the listeners, I didn't. But in that moment, I didn't.
Right.
Right. And this was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And that was such a powerful, what the actual fuck is your brain doing right now?
Right.
Because it really kept me out of the present.
Right.
And so often we're in the past or the future and we don't live in the present moment. So the right here, I love it when my clients repeat that back to me. They're like, I know, right here, right now, I'm okay. I'm like, yes.
Yes, because it's the truth.
That is all we have control over.
And it's the only thing that's actually true. Past doesn't exist anymore. Future doesn't exist yet. The only thing that exists is this moment right now. So in this moment right now, am I okay? Am I safe? I actually do this thing with my clients where I have them go through their 5 senses, like literally get to the present moment. Be right here, right now. Feel the seat on your, feel your seat on the seat.
Right.
That's consciousness. And that's, again, talking 5D. 5D is just staying fully 100% present in every moment. And I say that like it's easy. It's simple, but it's not easy.
You know what? And do you think it's sustainable, like 24/7?
No, I actually don't think it's sustainable.
So how do people, because there's probably a lot of shame. I remember years ago having having a conversation with somebody, and she said, I really hope this doesn't keep me out of like ascension or getting into 5D. And I was like, you're just living your life, right? But there could be some shame around, oh, I shouldn't have done this because it's going to keep me out of, right?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. My team, my spirit guides, my team has been very adamant in saying the decision's already been made. If you are in any, if they're hearing this podcast, they already have made it, right? Like there's you can't keep yourself out of ascension. So rest assured. So let that be sort of like it's all done. It's all good. You made it. But the other piece of that is it isn't sustainable. So that is why we need people who community, people who can sing our song, people who can honk our honk, people who can remind us what it feels like to hold that higher vibration, and also people who can hold it for us, teachers, coaches, healers, somebody who holds a higher vibration than you do, or even a similar vibration to you. I mean, you and I worked together for years, and we work so well together because we vibrate at the same level. So like we would share and talk, and this is the basis of our friendship, is that we have such solidity because we call each other forward. Sometimes we call each other out, right? but we hold each other to that vibration. And so we don't have to do it alone. We're not meant to be doing it alone.
Right.
And in fact, it's now detrimental to try.
And we're also human.
Right, exactly.
Right? So we have to remember that, right? Like our bodies are going to fall apart. And, I've had a hip replaced. I'm getting a knee replaced in the next few months, right? Like shit falls apart, and I get to decide how to respond to that, right?
Exactly.
And we're going to get to this isn't Robin's normal voice. I know it sounds a little sexy, not 900 number. She asked me if she thought we should reschedule, but I thought it was kind of sexy. But like, you're going to get sick, right?
Right.
And you can
ascension, like I'm doing an ascension thing. I'm clearing out.
Right.
Like, this is how my body reacts to that.
Yeah. Yes. And you can be cranky when you're sick and not feel good. And then you can also make the choice.
And you're still going to fall into old patterns. You're still going to yell at your kids or your husband or your wife or whatever. You're still going to make sometimes unconscious choices. You're still going to have anxiety running your board on occasion. I mean, that's the human condition.
Right.
The key is, can you have compassion
for,
Well, that's why the inner child reparenting is so important, because when that comes up, and it does, you can be like, hey, it's okay. We're okay. And there's a relationship built that they trust you. That inner person in you trusts yourself, because you're not abandoning yourself anymore.
So, I know that you say often that happiness is an inside job, right?
Yeah.
And no one else can make you happy. It's hard. It's really hard interviewing friends and people, because we have very similar language. So I'm pretending like I don't know the answer to this for our listeners, but it's real easy to blame everyone else sometimes.
Right. But again, that puts you back into that victim mode. That puts you back into powerlessness.
Yeah.
Nothing has ever happened to you. Literally, nothing has ever happened to you. It happened for you, for your growth.
So how do you explain that to somebody who, has hit rock bottom, right? I mean, I know the answer, right? But let's have that, right? Like, they've lost their job, they're losing their house, then they got sick, or a family member they don't see any light.
Right.
So what let's not even say, what would you say to them? But like, if somebody's in that place, what would you say is like, give 3 tips on how to, because when you're in that place, and people are,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, then they're like, fuck you, I'm going to be happy, happy, joy, joy, right? Because they can't see that.
Yeah.
But what would you say as a couple of tips to like start helping?
Well, when I was in that dark place, and I remember that darkness really well. I mean, I was dark in it. I didn't believe that there was a way out. I actually didn't believe there was joy. I believed it for everybody else on the planet, but not
Well, it goes
me.
into that victim. Why me?
Right, exactly.
Why does everyone else get to be happy?
Right,
And
exactly.
everything keep happening to me. Yeah.
And I remember that what I started doing was, I said, I don't believe this is true. I actually don't believe it. But if I did believe it, what would I do? If this was true, if it was true that, everybody has value, I believe that for every other person on the planet. If I believed it for myself, what would I do? And that's why I started my Ho'oponopono practice.
Yeah.
Was I was like, okay. So I started saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I couldn't say I love you. I could not say it to myself. I like you, you'll do, you don't suck, whatever it was, but I could not say I love you. Eventually I got to that place, but it
Yeah.
took me a really long time. So I just like I started a gratitude practice, right? Very simple. What went right today? Even again, I've said this 1,000 times, but like sometimes the thing that went right was I came home to a bed. Sometimes the thing that went right was I didn't get bit by a dog that I didn't have, right? Like I really tried to
Right.
find anything that went right that day,
Yeah.
because energy goes where your attention goes. It is really easy to get mired in it. I also know now that what I would recommend is you meet yourself with compassion. You meet yourself with like, okay, it sucks right now. And with empathy and compassion. And I'm like, I get it. Let's actually have the temper tantrum. Let's actually break down. Let's actually allow the dam to burst and stop trying to hold it all together. And sometimes
What
that
if that
is
feels so scary to somebody?
I
Right?
think
Because let's face it, those people don't feel like there's anyone there for them because
right.
we've both been there, right? Like,
Yep.
I can't let the dam go because nobody's going to be there to
They
help me
can't hold it
anyway.
for me.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, how can they feel safe in letting the dam go and having the temper tantrum?
I mean, I always had a sense of something bigger than I am. I
Hmm.
don't know that I don't know that I ever I questioned whether I was forsaken in it, but I never questioned whether that higher power was there.
Okay.
Um, and so what I started doing was asking for grace.
Hmm.
I don't deserve it. I know I did all these shitty things. I know I fucked up. I know I don't deserve grace. But if there's any place in the universe that has grace for me, I would love it. Right? Like again, I didn't believe I deserved it, but I
Right.
would ask for it anyway.
What made you shift, right? So, if you
Yeah.
didn't believe that you deserved it, what made you actually even willing to try?
I think because I was at the end of my rope and I had nothing else to try. Like I
Yeah.
had nothing else to turn to. Right? I really was at the rockest bottom place. And I just was like, well, shit, I had done personal work. I had done healing, coaching, I had a mass, again, I had an alphabet of letters after my name, or well, not quite an alphabet at that point, but I had done so much. And every single teacher and guru and healer and everybody had always said, you're enough as is. That was basically, right?
Like, you just have to say that because I'm paying you.
Right. So I mean, I said, all right, I don't believe this, but if I did believe it, like again, I was at the end of my rope. I would love for people not to get to the end of their rope before they wake up like this. But the pain of denying who I was more painful than staying in it was. That's what has to happen sometimes.
What are your thoughts around, I'm trying to word this in a way that it doesn't sound like finger pointing, right? But like we
Sure.
talk about manifestation and we bring to us, right? Like
I know.
what, like, so in your situation, the same shit kept happening, right?
Right.
Not
Right.
that you were at fault, air quotes again,
Right.
fault, but it was a result of the things that you were doing because you needed to learn the lessons, right? So that becomes
Right.
this is my fault that all these horrible things, like, how do you help
Well,
people
and
distinguish?
I go one step further because I feel I've so many times people say your bank account is only as much as you see your value, all this stuff. So I did so much work around money and manifesting and worth and all this stuff, and I just was like, I I had to stop that too,
Mm,
because there's a shadow side to personal work.
yeah.
You will never be done if you
Right. So
keep
if you're always
going.
trying to fix yourself, you're saying I'm
Exactly.
broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I spent once I came out of the dark night, I spent years in that like manifesting, trying to make things happen. It's all my fault. I'm responsible. That was just as detrimental as the 39 years I spent not liking myself at all. Right?
Right.
So that was
'Cause it's
another
still
again
saying not
lesson.
enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, it is it is easy to do that. It is way easy to point a finger, and so many people who've done just a little bit of work actually experience that.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the shadow side of spirituality in general. And I call it like McDonald's spirituality. It's like there's a lot of bypassing that happens, right? So I think again it comes back to making peace with you in that moment too,
Yeah.
and embracing I'm not perfect at this. I may be creating this, which is that's really when I started um, co-creating more than manifesting.
Mm.
Okay, what is it? I learned surrender the hard way.
So talk to us about the difference between co-creating and manifesting, because it's a fine line, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So manifesting, the word manual, like hand work, hard. It's your own personal will, hopefully matching up again with the universe's will. If you have a pretty strong will, you can manifest, but it takes tremendous effort and discipline and action and focus, and it is a very masculine energy. Some people excel at it, right? The co-creation process is saying we either say to the divine, thy will be done, or the divine says to us, thy will be done. And both are true, right? God says, all right, you want to do this your way, go ahead. You don't have all the resources I have, but go ahead, try this. Do you think it'll work? I think it'll work. Let's try it again.
Give it a shot.
Right? You're so cute. Look at you. You're doing this
Right?
again. Oh my God, I love it. So I think the co-creation process is recognizing that I am a cog in the wheel of a ginormous system. I am one tiny little speck of sand in a vast ocean. And so if I try to bend my will, I can, but co-creation means, okay, what do you want to create with me? Here's what I'd love. What's available? What are my options? What are we working on together? It's a way more it's much more feminine energy. It's much more allowing, much more receiving, much more connection. Again, 5D versus 3D. Manifesting is a very 3D thing. Co-creation is a much more 5D thing.
Nice. What do you want someone who is listening to take away from our conversation today?
I want everybody on the planet to just know that they matter. Like you matter. Period. There's no accidents in any nothing ever happens by accident. You exist, which means you matter. And your sole job on the planet is to figure out why. That's
I
it.
had I had a conversation recently with someone that was going through something pretty traumatic. And, I said, I started my spiritual journey probably almost 21 years ago when my niece was stillborn, because I needed fucking answers. I needed to understand
Right.
why shit like this happens, right?
Yes.
And it wasn't, it was years before I could even take a step back and say, okay, there's a bigger, there's the bigger piece, right? Because I stopped praying when my mom died. Not that I ever was asking for her to be healed, I was asking for her to be taken, and that wasn't happening, right? So I was like,
Right.
I'm done with this shit. Right. And then, however many years later, my niece died. And I was like, what the actual F? I need to understand this. Right.
Right.
And I love the sacred contracts, right? Like it
Yes.
has nothing to do, like it's all already decided.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And my sister and two other moms started a foundation that have helped hundreds of other families that have had infant loss. And that would never have happened if it wasn't for my niece giving of herself, right? I've had to
Mhm.
reframe the way that I think about it. But in the moment, and I said to this person recently, I was like, you may not never understand the reason, and and there's
Mhm.
still a reason that we
There's
just
still a
don't
reason.
know, right? So it really sometimes is so hard to make sense of these really not great, like I don't even want
Mhm.
to say bad. I don't like using good or bad, because
Right. It's that's like
that's judgment, right? This
exactly.
shouldn't have been, this should be, right? But when we classify, right? Like that was a pretty horrible thing when my niece died, but um stepping back, sure, 21 years later, still would love her to be here. I want to buy her first drink in February, right? And
Yeah.
I know there's a plan bigger than, right? So
Sure.
when I love that speck, right? We are just a little piece of sand on the beach. Go to the beach, people, grab a piece of sand. That is you in the universe, right? Like
Exactly.
you can really, like if you're a visual person, I invite you to go to the beach today and grab a piece of sand.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and I think that's like, and I think again, sometimes that there's a spiritual bypassing that happens that says, well, everything happens for a reason and God has a plan. And like, I do think sometimes, again, that takes away from the devastation and the grief and the
Right.
sadness and the longing for your
Whatever.
sister is never not going to grieve her daughter.
Right.
It's just a part of who she is, right? And it changed her. It changed her fundamentally. Of course, do you wish she was here? Absolutely.
Right.
So I do think you have to go through those things. Again, it comes back to feel the feelings in them. Be in it, feel the sadness, feel the frustration, feel the victim. I had my client today feel his victim.
Yeah.
And it was the only way we could get past it.
And what I would say too, for people that are listening, right? Some of these things, like the feelings can be overwhelming, right? Like if you're going through something traumatic, don't do it alone.
No.
Hire a coach, get a therapist, right? Like take care of your mental health because this stuff is big. Like I know when my niece died, like I was in therapy. I think I was even medicated at the time, right? Like it was bigger than I could manage.
Absolutely. And it's supposed to be.
Right.
Right.
But I had the support. So many people are going through life without the support. It's really important to have the support.
I agree. And I do think that it doesn't have to be cost prohibitive. I think sometimes this work feels cost prohibitive or whatever, but there are so many
There's so many
free resources and so much, you have your own, this podcast now, you like, I have a YouTube channel. I go live every Monday. Like there's so many of us who feel so strongly about this work that like, we're making it pretty freaking accessible. And I will never let money be the thing that stops you from doing the work. Right. I'm like, whatever, money is just whatever, who cares? Right. So I have people, I have one client who pays me $75 a week. I'm like, she'll pay me $75 a week indefinitely, but
for the rest of her life.
Right. Yeah. But like, she's doing this amazing work. And again, who cares? Right. Do I need the money to pay my mortgage? Yes. But I know that there are people who can pay it, so that people who can't can get this. Or I just feel strongly that we do. It's not a spiritual poverty, but it's important. You can't do this work alone. And when you say, I don't have the resources, that's another excuse that your brain
not take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Self-care. I mean, I did talk about this with my clients all the time because my clients are typically women that are putting everyone else first. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for me. I don't have time for me. I don't have time for me. Well, I actually said to one person once, the old, put the oxygen mask on you and she said, that actually pisses me off. Like she couldn't even recognize that the importance of taking care of herself so she could take care of her children, right? Like it is so important to take care of yourself so that you can do whatever you're meant to do in the world.
And we are also training generations of women not to care for themselves. Like if you want to break the cycle of whatever bullshit is out there right now, you have to take care of yourself first because literally no one else can. And you want to, if you can't do it for you, do it for your kids. And if you do it for your kids, that means you teach them what it means to be, quote, selfish.
Well, and if you're not taking care of yourself, you're also teaching others how to take care of you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So I got it. I'm good. Okay. Then you're good.
And you're
good.
Walk
away.
Right. You sure you're good? All right. Okay.
Right. So tell people how they can find you.
My website is probably the easiest way to do that. Phoenix-rising-healings.com. Healings with an S. But if you Google Robin Thomas or any version of Phoenix Rising Healings, I'm everywhere. I'm on social. I have a Facebook group. I have Facebook page, Instagram. I'm all the places. I'm all the things.
Okay. And we'll put that in the show notes. And you have an offer that you want to make.
So I do a group healing once a month. I am a channel for a council of multidimensional beings called the Council of Light. And so I channel them often. And I do a group healing once a month for the beings that come through are just profound. They're just amazing. I hold the space, they do the healing. It's magical. So I am offering any one of your listeners, they can come to whenever this drops, whenever it is. It's always the fourth Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern. So they can just reach out to me or reach out to you. I can put the link in the show notes. They can just register for that month's healing. And if they mention that it was the podcast, then I'll know that I'll know to send them a link without checking.
Okay. Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I am going to pull some cards now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you choose a card. So left, center, right.
I think left or maybe center. So it's actually probably a combo.
All right.
Just let me.
This is, I love this. Yesterday, the cards were all about joy, and we talked about joy a lot in the card. Yeah. So this is future, let go of the past and move forward, right?
Yes.
But I think that it's also about being in the present, right?
Absolutely.
So in order to be in the present. So that's the left. So if you chose the left, listeners, that's your card. And then can't make this shit up. You just can't make this shit up. So the center card is the silence. Be still, for all the answers lie in the silence.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
In order to hear, you have to just quiet that brain.
Get quiet. Exactly.
And right is dignity. Hold your head up high and know the unicorns are supporting you. This is a unicorn deck.
I got it.
So you are supported.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much, Robin, for having this conversation. This has been great. This is Francine Tirrell. I'm a spiritual mindset coach. You've been listening to Effin' Fridays with Francine. You can find me on my website at Forever Changed Coaching. I also have a Facebook group. It'll all be in the show notes, Facebook group, all the things. So thank you so much. And if you're ready to make a big ass up level in your business and